Dr. Dale Dangleben is our next guest. He was born and raised in Point Michelle, Dominica, and he is double boarded general and trauma surgery. He is the surgical trauma ICU director at Geisinger Holy Spirit Hospital. He's also the acute care surgery director at Geisinger Holy Spirit Hospital. And he is also the clinical associate professor of surgery at Geisinger Commonwealth School of Medicine. In addition to this, he is the chief editor of the Caribbean Health Awareness Magazine, among many other things. I know him on Facebook, so I also know that he's a chef, he's an activist, and he is a wonderful ambassador for Dominica. Welcome, Dr. Dangleben.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and thank you for joining us today. So I listed a whole bunch of titles of who the world says you are, who your accomplishment says you are. But in your mind, who is Dale Dangleben?
Oh, yeah. Well, I consider myself, simple in terms of my interaction with humanity. I think that defines who I am. A lot of people expect the guy with the jacket and tie and uptight, but I always have been that simple guy who can interact with anyone. So, the guy on the street or the CEOs of the boardroom, I can deal with that. So that's who I want people to see me as, not as, this doctor, medical director, a very simple person who meets people where they are.
Good. Thank you for sharing with us. Now, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, tell us some of the early challenges you faced in your professional life.
Well, it's really been a road up here, because initially I wanted to be a chemist, because chemistry was a passion of mine, and I undergrad my degrees in chemistry. But it's very interesting when you come from the Caribbean and you're not aware of your environment, and that's where I was. But I quickly learned my environment of what was going on. And one example I always give of the challenges is the challenge to education, right? It took me 9 months to get a job up here as a security guard, but that is what it is. But one of the challenges that I faced was educators who were literally trying to block and obstruct my progress. Right. So, for example, the head of the Department of Chemistry where I went to undergrad, I wrote this in my book, lied to me to my face and said to me, there is no such thing. I was graduating 4.0 in chemistry, and I went to his office and he said to me, we don't have an honor course, when somebody told me there was an honor course. And then I went back, and in the book, it says a 2-credit honors course. So he actually lied to me. And that is the bigger picture of a lot of people like me dropping out when they face this challenge, right? If I had just accepted that, there is no such thing as honors in chemistry, I would never have graduated with honors in chemistry. But this guy who's supposed to be chairman of the department, supposed to motivate me, did not. So these are the kind of challenges, but you have to be aware of it. You have to be cognizant to see what is happening and go around it, right? So a lot of my classmates were dropping out and going to a BMCC to take chemistry, etc., because they were scared. And it was not because they were stupid. It was because there was a system in place to obstruct the progress.
Wow. So that speaks very well to what is going on in the world Absolutely. Right now in terms of the systematic obstruction that many Black people speak of. So it's not an illusion because you actually experienced it.
Yes, and from even my own, this is very, very important, because anyone who's listening out there who's young, who wants to be a pre-med, who wants to go into medicine, has to listen to this, because I think it's important to tell these stories. My pre-med advisor, I speak against that too. There I was on the dean's list every semester. I was working full time and acing everything. And I met my pre-medical advisor, and he says to me, well, you have not done volunteer work up here, blah, blah, blah. I see that you're from the Caribbean. Your best bet is to go to a Caribbean school. Wow. The guy did not even give me a chance, And, you know, I never went back to him. I never went back to him because my goal was to get into medical school at this point, you know, and I aced the MCAT and I got into medical school. And then I was one of I was recognized for an award, a Jonas Salk Award, and the TV stations were there, etc. And he was there, and he ran into me. But I was already accepted to medical school at Penn State. But you see, these are the kind of people that I speak up against because they are there, and I had to fight to be where I am today because of people like that trying to stop me.
Right, and it's so unfortunate because I think we all have stories such as yours, because I even remember as an undergrad at Midwestern State University in Texas that, you know, you try to do the career assessments because you're not sure what you want to do. And it seems like it was always tailored to a certain path. I would do the assessments every semester and it would come back exactly the same thing: social work, teacher. And not that I am downgrading those particular professions, but it just always seems like it was trying to pigeonhole the options that I have. So thank you for speaking on that. Now, I know that you're a pretty strong guy, but would you say that those challenges took any particular toll on you?
It always takes a toll. It breaks you down at the moment. But one thing what happened to me initially, I always say, when you have your foot on my neck, that is when I am the strongest, right? Oh, wow. If you tell me I can't do it, I will do it. And people say, well, how do you do it? How do you do this? There is a method to my madness that I'm not going to get into, but that makes me, what broke me down made me stronger eventually, because initially I couldn't understand it, you know, because we grew up in the Caribbean. We're very sort of, you know, sheltered, well, that's maybe not the right word. When it comes to racism and things like that, our eyes are not open to this. So we just say, well, that's how it is. But when you look closely and you look deeper, you understand it. So all these things made me stronger and stronger. And the more, you know, they used to call me the ABM, angry black man, at one point. And a lot of my classmates were worried about me, that, you know, I would lash out. But again, that is part of learning the process, because that's what they want you to do, right? I went through medical school. I went through a surgical residency, which is 5 years of training, and then extra training in trauma. It takes a certain discipline. So you have to let yourself understand that you need to be disciplined and you need to be strong-willed to be able to overcome these things, because any little thing that you do in the wrong direction, they will use that against you. And I never gave them that opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm really happy we're having this conversation, because it is so timely, because like you just said, it's almost like when you're from the Caribbean, they tell you that's how things are. And that kind of just reminds me of what John Lewis faced when he was trying to, you know, understand what was going on. And his mom or somebody told him, that's just how it is. And he refused to accept that answer. So it is so timely what you're speaking of. Now let's fast forward a little bit and tell me what your patient experience has been like, because my husband is a physician as well. And the stories he comes back with of people in 2020 doubting his qualifications, his expertise as a medical doctor, assuming that he's the physician assistant, for example, when he walks into a room. So kind of tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, you know, that still happens. And I wrote about this in several of my books. You know, it still continues, even if I am the trauma medical director. Yes, I am, you know, with the patient transporter. And, you know, again, it's not meant to look down on these professions, and people have to understand that. But again, I could write a whole book on my experience during training. I would be standing there with my white coat with my name that says MD, and they would not see that. They would see the black man, and they would be like, well, he's here to take me down. And I will give you one experience. I was already an attending, and I was the operating surgeon of the day. And the way it works, my partner put cases on. So at the end of the day, I could just keep going. So he put a case on for me, and between cases, I went up to see the patient. So I was in my scrubs. Between surgeries, I went up to the 7th floor, and I'm there. That's when we had, you know, the charts, and I'm going through the chart, and the nurse comes, and the nurse starts yelling. She's yelling, "Oh, you will always come up here and take the patients and don't tell us, blah, blah, blah." I looked at her, because I don't take nonsense from anyone. I said, "Who you talking to?" A little Caribbean, thing. Who you talking to? And I said, "I'm Dr. Dangleben, who's going to take this patient to the OR next." She ran off. And then the nursing supervisor comes and tries to, I said, no, I don't want to talk to you. She better get back here and apologize. So she came back crying. And she tried to apologize. And I said to her, even if it's the cleaning person, you don't talk to them like that, blah, blah, all right? And I called my boss and I told him, I said, I'm not going to put up with this. And there's a lot more stories like this because that's what people expect us to be. And we start believing that's what we're supposed to be. And that's what I tell people, man. When I'm in that position that I am right now, I get written up and I go where I have to go to report. And I said to them, I don't care. Because you know why? I know what this is about. I have seen this so many times. Do what you have to do. Investigate what you have to investigate. People many of them cannot deal with me being in the position that I am, right? And when I say on Facebook that I am fearlessly free in the positive, I would say that in the boardroom, right? I say that openly because you have to be that way. Otherwise, we will always be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And we apologize for things that we're not supposed to be apologizing for.
Yes, certainly. And, we're having an honest conversation, but, these experiences, why doesn't it make you a better person? How are you able to still stand strong, stay driven, stay motivated? Why don't these experiences break you down?
Well, it takes its toll. I can tell you, honestly, the last since this, thing going on here with Black life, it has really taken its toll on me deep within, because a lot of old wounds, comes up. And so it's not that there is no, it doesn't take its toll. It's that you have to always say to yourself, you know what, I am bigger and I'm better than this, and I have to keep going, not just for myself, but for my children and for the greater good of mankind, especially at this stage, Black people. I have to speak up on that. So I have developed certain mentalities. And one of the things that I read a lot, I read a lot of books growing up. I still read a lot of books, but now I've gone off the track to find the books that they never fed me. You know what I mean? And when I read these books, I have a better understanding. Because I always go back to Marcus Garvey. And when we were growing up in the Caribbean, I associated him with Rastafarianism and whatever. But there was so much more to his ideals and things. So when I read about these guys, I try to put myself in their place, and that is my strength. So when I come on Facebook and I talk about ancestry being my guide and my vector, I really honestly mean that. And this is the things I want people to understand, because that is where the strength has to come up. You could come home and say, oh my God, they treated me so poorly. What am I going to do next? And feel defeated. And that's where it breaks down, because once you start feeling defeated, that the anxiety kicks in, the depression comes in, and then you become a different person. You cannot let that happen to you. And I know it's very different for certain people in terms of how they deal with certain things, such as anxiety and depression. But the certain triggers for us exist, and the quicker we can see it, the better we'll be able to handle it.
Yeah, and so very true, because one of the things I tell myself every day, because the world sees you as a particular person, but the thing I tell myself every day is, you don't get to define me. So I say this every day: you do not get to define me, and I will not engage. Yeah. Because you can almost feel the negative energy coming towards you. Right. And it's almost like you have to be prepared mentally to say, you know what, this is negative energy coming towards me, and I'm simply not going to engage, because this is not who I am. Yeah. So it's this constant battle within your own mind to stay prepared.
And, one of the books, Fanon, I think I have it back there somewhere. Mm-hmm. Black Skin, White Mask is such a powerful book. For those who don't know, Fanon was from Martinique, and he was a psychiatrist. And, just such a prolific writer, just brilliance. And these are the kind of books, just Black Skin, White Mask. And these are the kind of things that I read that makes me understand where I am where I am right now, not where I was 30, 40 years ago, but where I am right now. You know, I sit on the medical executive committee. I run the ICU. I do this, I do that. But at the end of the day, who am I deep within? You know, and I don't think about, honestly, I don't think about what the CEO or the CMO. I said to myself, you know what have I become that my parents would be proud of? These are the kind of things that I think is more satisfying to me, because when we run around trying to please certain people, we end up disappointing ourselves, and self-disappointment is really a poison to the soul.
Right. And I'm fascinated by the books that you are talking about that you said they don't want us to read. So can you tell us a couple of those books? Because I'm certainly interested now.
You know, Wretched of the Earth and from Fanon, the Black Athena. I have it here. I have a couple books right here. I also have Anthony Frampton. I have that. I also have, this is an old book. This is from Eldridge Cleaver. There's a whole story on his Soul on Ice. He was the Minister of Information for the Black Panthers. He became a disgrace. That's a different subject in of itself. After he went into exile and he had to come back. But these are the kind of books. I sent all the Black focused books of Marcus Garvey. I sent that down to St. Vincent. I sent that down to the Caribbean so they can have a bookshelf for people to read. But these are the kind of books that I read so I can understand. Also, religious, text. And I'm not talking about not just Christianity. I explore different religions and how people look at religion, because again, if we look at things just from where we sit, we don't understand other people, and that's where the phobia comes from, right? So I read certain things. I have a lot of ebooks on my phone, so when I have a little time, I can read, and I think that's what's important in terms of developing the mind. One of the first books I read up here was called The Executioner Song by Norman Mailer. It's a true story about a murder, right? And it's really not even a black and white issue. It was a white guy who was on death row, but it gives you a perception of what the society is around. That was one of the first books. And then one of the second books I read was, the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I'm like, wow, right? And then I read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and by Maya Angelou. It's just such a wide selection to read from, and to see that, this is not just a straight line. There is just so much more. And then, you sit and you focus on the things that you read, right? And then when I read about Frantz Fanon, and then I understood his influence on the Africans like Steve Biko and how this ripple effect. James Baldwin, right? I'm not your Negro. I have that back there. These are the kind of books that I started to read, and that's just only been in the last 5-6 years, to be honest with you. But I really got so deep into it that I started to understand myself better as a Black man. I could sit here comfortable with the money that I make and just say, you know what, leave that alone, enjoy your life. But it shouldn't be like that, because when you think of the greats, I wrote a poem, Where is Marcus? About Marcus Garvey, but it was just about all the greats from the Caribbean, right? Whatever you think of them, Forbes Burnham, Eric Williams, whatever you think of them, they had something to bring to the table, and it was so deep and intellectual that you have to go there and try to understand it.
Yeah, some powerful information. So for our listeners, if you did not catch all the books that Dr. Dangleben was talking about, I'm hoping that you will probably send me a quick list of the books, and we'll be happy to share them with you. And it just seems like it's all about shifting your perspective. So we grew up with one perspective, and then the onus is on us to educate ourselves to be able to depart from that perspective. Now, I would be remiss if I did not ask, what has been the impact of coronavirus on your institution?
We've been on a downslope for a while, which is good. I think overall Pennsylvania has done a great job. My institution, I work for Geisinger, which is a very, very big system. We have 5 trauma centers, etc. So it's well organized. I could tell you late March, April, May was, pretty scary in terms of, what was going on, the increase in the cases, the mortality. But I think we did a very good job in terms of containing. We still, obviously, it's literally part of what we are now, with the mask and the washing of the hands and the alcohol and things like that. So I think there's a lot of education that has taken place. What else is going around the country? That's a different issue in and of itself. More, I think, political and misinformation and lack of education. But I think for my institution, things are going well.
Good, good. Now, I follow you on Facebook there, and I have to tell you, it seems like the rest of us given 24 hours a day, but somehow I feel like you have more than 24 hours because everything that you do, you're an author. Now I see that you're a chef, you're a poet. So how do you keep all those balls in the air, Dale? How do you keep from completely crashing? And where does all that inspiration come from?
Well, I have always done all these things. I've been cooking for a very, very long time, and that inspiration comes from my mother who passed in 2013. And so the thing about it is ideas, people have ideas. Ideas are, what is it, a dime a dozen? You have an idea, oh, wow, and you want to keep it to yourself. I have a method and I don't mind sharing it.
Oh, please do.
So when I got the first iPhone in 2009, there was any surgical education information. There was none. So I went and I started an app company and we started developing apps, right? So to me, when there's a void, I step in and I do what I have to do. Now, the method to the madness is this. You get an idea and we never write it down. And then later that day, like, oh my, what was it? I never do that. I have my phone. I have used technology to my advantage. I dictate. As a surgeon, you have to dictate everything. I dictate into my phone, into the notepad, every idea that I have. And then I could go back, tomorrow, next week, and develop it. So even when I write people wonder why I write so quickly.
Yes.
I don't write, I dictate. So even my poetry, I dictate. Right. So it's a matter of using, I don't want to go too deep into it, but I use the technology to my advantage. Yes. I have worked with people in India. I've worked with people in Europe, and I've never met these people. I'm talking about 10 plus years in technology and building things. And it's about using, like we're doing right now, using the Zoom. And so that's what I do. So in the middle of the night, if I wake up at 2 o'clock and I have an idea, I do not go back to sleep, right? I say to myself, okay, I'm going to stay up till 4. I'm going to sleep for another 2 and then go to work, right? So that's another discipline that has to be, that has to happen. But I put everything down. And what I do when I have a free time in the evening, for example, if I'm writing a book, I have it dictated in my phone. But then I would go and I would email that from the notepad, right, to my cloud, and then I could type and edit it in Word, and then I send it back to my notepad on my phone, and then I could go back and dictate into the story. So that story moves very, very quickly. I just did a book called After the Virus, and I literally wrote it the whole story in 2 weeks. It took longer than that to develop it, but the whole idea. I have about 5 concepts for books already in my notepad. So it's about how you manage your time. Some of us, as I get older, I need more sleep. But when I was training, I was, sleep is overrated. Sleep is overrated. I don't want anybody to take that, literally, because I need my sleep now. But if you want to do something, do it. Don't sit there and wait, because how many times have you woken up in the middle of the night with an idea, and then the next day you're like, what was that? What totally went? And it was a great idea. It was a great idea. You just cannot remember it for nothing. I put everything down. I was the first surgical resident to walk around with a trauma camera. You can't do that anymore. Around my neck. And every injury that came in, I would take pictures. That was 20 years ago. So I have over 10,000 surgical images, right? So when I wrote the textbook for Springer, all the pictures in there is copyrighted to me. I own those pictures, right? So that's, and you have to understand, it has to be a learning process. If you look at my first book that I published, it's good, I'm proud of it, but if you translate that into now, I've improved, and you have to learn. That's the whole process. It's the learning process.
Yeah, so if you're just joining us, we're speaking to Dr. Dale Dangleben out there in Pennsylvania, it is, right? And
Yes.
he's telling us all about what it takes, because, you know, the name of the program is Untapped Potential, but for the sake of this episode, I'm just going to call it Limitless Potential, because it seems like that is what Dr. Dangleben has. And, you know, it is so interesting that you talk about putting everything down in your cell phone, because that is exactly what I do. I wrote my entire book, Push Past 10, and the notes are all from my phone. And it's so funny because I do exactly the same thing. Oh, you have my book. Thank you so much. I do exactly the same thing. You know, you note it into your phone, but I don't mind typing into my phone. And then what I do, so I don't lose the information, I email it to myself. So that way, if God forbid it disappears from my cell phone, I have a backup of the information. So, you know, I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face because I'm thinking, oh my, I do exactly the same thing. Now, you talked about your books and everything. Now, if you were interested in getting copies of your books, do you have a website? Where might we find more information?
Well, everything is on Amazon, but you know, I started this program in 2015 called Carry Swap Shop, and I really wanted to, again, I did this, I invested a lot into it because I wanted the Caribbean vendors to bring their products online, because there's a lot of people who cannot afford to build a website, get a developer, and it literally costs about $2,000 to $2,500 to get a full website with the developer and all the hosting, etc. So I developed carryswapshop.com, and it was a failure for the first few years. We're relaunching that now with a focus on the diaspora, because the big issue with the Caribbean is shipping. So a long story answer is, all my books is on Carry Swap Shop right now. It's a little cheaper on there than Amazon, because the way Amazon works, you know, it's a royalty system. So all the books I have published for all the folks, you know, for Adea Sanford, the Kalinago book, you know, Shirley Allen, all great books. We're all gonna bring these books to Carry Swap Shop, but everyone else can also get it on Amazon.
Okay, good. So what I will do, I will also include a link to your shopping website onto my website when I put your promo information. Now, as we get ready to wind down, I found this very profound information that you wrote on Facebook. So I'm going to read it out because I think it kind of captures a lot of who you are and why we're so proud to call you Dominican. So I'm paraphrasing, I'm not reading all of the information, but it says, you can gain the world without losing your soul. Many get to the top of the mountain and they cut the rope that got them there. They then stand on the mountain and thump their chest, thinking they are untouchable. Climb the mountain, build a road, or drop a rope. Bring others up. How profound. Can you expound on that for us?
Well, you know, it's I truly believe that, you know, it has to go back to Marcus Garvey. I have so much to talk about Marcus Garvey, but there's so many of us that make it, quote unquote, make it, you know, financially capable, whatever talent we have, and we feel like we've arrived. And I look at the Black community, and I have to say that we even if some of the celebrities, and it's me, it's the individual. I have made it. And I think that's what our biggest problem is. We don't come together as a collective to bring each other up, right? If I have a talent and I made it, why can't I invest in somebody else's talent? And we don't see that. You know, I have written all this book, and thank God I'm financially capable to publish my own books. Illustration is very expensive, but there are literary agencies out there, and we cannot get there is no pathway for Black authors. I go to every store, I've taken picture of all the books from the shelf, and they're all white authors, right? But you think of certain people, I'm not going to mention their names, maybe some in your neck of the woods that have become celebrity, and they have not created a path. Literary agencies, all the other sectors. That is what we need to get into. And that's what Marcus Garvey wanted for us. Economic upliftment. We need to be at the table discussing the economic upliftment of each other, right? You have a talent, I have a talent. We're different in different religions, different things. But when it comes to building each other, we don't know how to do that. We get to the table and we start arguing about things that are irrelevant, not necessarily irrelevant, but that will not get us to the next step. The politics, the religion, all these things just hold us back.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm talking about. When you get up there, you don't have to build a road, like I said, but drop a rope.
Absolutely.
Bring one up, and then another's going to bring another up. And then we're up there, and then we can do something. But we're so greedy. I'm telling you, greed is one of the things that hold us back. You have celebrities that are worth billions of dollars with no children, and build a $200,000 school in Africa. That's not enough. That's not enough. And we have to learn from other groups to do better. And it has to start with the individual, talking to people like me and you, having these discussions about these things. And don't even let me start about the Caribbean folks and how we step on each other next because of our envy and jealousy. When I see a young Dominican or old, whatever, bringing something to the table, that makes me feel good. It's not like, oh, I wish that was me. No, we have to embrace that. We have this jealous mentality. The crab in barrel thing has to stop.
Yeah, and that's certainly powerful, and you certainly walk the walk that you're talking right now, because I've seen you promoting others on Facebook, including me and my book. So I know that you're very serious, and I think it really starts with us. And I'm hoping that by networking with people like you and others that I'm speaking with, that is in fact what we're doing, that we're creating a community of people who have quote unquote made it, and we are hoping to spread the ripples of what we have done so that others do not have to begin from scratch. Because I think a lot of it starts with that we are so much as individuals that we do not take advantage of the strength of each other in terms of building a community where the next person, the next generation is not starting from scratch, but they're starting from our shoulders, and they can move all of us up together. So truly powerful information. So as we get ready to wind down, I want to tell you how much I appreciate that you took some time to be with us. I know you haven't slept from from your shift.
It's all good.
So I truly appreciate that you did this for us. And do you have anything you would like to leave with us? Any parting words you would like to leave with us today?
Well, yeah, I honestly want to get back to that idea of the collective strength and working together no matter who we are, where we are. And again, it's not even a black and white thing. It has to be an individual humanitarian thing in terms of how we move forward. We're too divided. We're too divided politically. We're too divided on a religious basis. We just need to drop it and come together and do things like we're trying to do with that literary group that we have. And these are the kind of things that we have to build. The financial part, when folks say, well, he's here he just wants to make money. No, I have made my money. Don't be silly. I'm trying to bring things, do things that I've learned up here that other people do in terms of investing and how they grow their money. These are the kind of things that I think is important, and we all have to pay attention to it. And
I'm really trying to let you go, Dale, but I'm just so fascinated with this conversation that I have to ask you, how do we break these barriers? Because, you know, you do get the sense that when you're trying to do for others, the first thing people will think, oh, she's just trying to make money, he's just trying to make money. How do you break that barrier to show that what you're trying to do is invest in your community?
Well, I think the like-mindedness of certain people have to come. We have to start there. There are some people that's just going to be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that we have to accept also. That's the reality of the situation, like I put it. But if it takes 5, 6 of us to come together, for example, to start a literary agency, to start an investment group, and then we build on that. Because most of the other folks that do it, you know who they start with? Their family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's how a lot of people I know that run investment companies in New York start with their family and friends, taking chances on them. Mm-hmm. We have to start believing in each other. So I think it's you really convincing 1 or 2 people, and then coming together and growing from there. The idea of always looking for one person to lead is also a big problem with us. You know, I'm not in that, but let him do it. No, come together and do it. Collective strength.
Yes, fascinating, fascinating. So again, thank you for being with us. We have learned so much from your life experiences, your struggles, and your triumph, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So
have a good evening and try to get some rest.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.